Primary support for Earthlings 2.0 comes from Technica Communications, an award-winning PR firm amplifying breakthrough technologies of the future. Additional support comes from the U.S. Biochar Initiative, who is increasing production and use of biochar in North America by developing markets for biochar, increasing awareness, and building community. If you'd like to be a supporter of Earthlings 2.0, email us at lisaann@earthlingspodcast.com.
We really just want to be like the small, meaty pieces of information that kind of gets people back into the habit of reading the news and staying informed. And then they can kind of spread outwards from there to go back into like the news sources. We don't want to become a replacement. It's really just the bridge.
Greetings, Earthlings, and welcome back to Earthlings 2.0, the show where we imagine how we could be better versions of ourselves and build a collective future we actually want to live in. In today's digital world, sensational headlines and emotionally charged stories can dominate our news feeds. I mean, you know what I'm talking about. You see it every day. Headlines that are clickbait, social media algorithms amplifying these effects, articles that within the first two sentences, like, have you starting to get charged up inside? You want to go out and fight, right? This emotionality of it. You're not alone if you're recognizing some of these things that I'm saying here, because we have a news world in some respects that tends to push more exaggerated or fear-driven narratives because it's a good business model, quite frankly. Sometimes people forget that when you're reading or watching a piece of news, you're not always the sole customer of that news. Sometimes you're also the product, meaning the business model is to sell more ads and have more clicks, and so they're trying to get more people like you to read these things, and so they tend to lean on some of these tactics that are tried and true in the world of sort of less than ethical journalism, I would say. If you're interested in diving in a bit more around how news has evolved over the past decades and where it's going, please feel free to click on the link in our show notes, and that'll go to our interview with the Poynter Institute, which was extremely revealing. So, it's not just your own observations that show us that sensationalism is being used to boost engagement. There is a 2024 Reuters Institute study that found that 39% of people worldwide are actively avoiding the news. Well, they do based during the time of this reporting, often due to the emotional exhaustion from this negative and repetitive reporting. So this is growing some disengagement, and it's also making it harder to stay informed, frankly, because it's harder to find those neutral fact-based stories. So there's a lot of need for something out there that's going to give us just the facts, ma'am. And our guests today say they have an app for that. But before we dive in, I'm your host, Lisa Ann Pinkerton. I'm the founder and CEO of the award-winning technology firm Technica Communications and the founder of Women in Clean Tech and Sustainability. Before building those organizations, I was an award-winning science reporter for NPR and PBS, and I covered everything from environmental science to business, technology, education, and healthcare. And whether this is your first or 50th time listening to the show, thank you very much for joining us today. It is our pleasure to bring you these stories, and we're thrilled that you enjoy listening to them. If you'd like to do one thing for the podcast that would help us grow our community, is to share this podcast with a friend. Like the next time you're talking podcast, or you happen to notice that you're citing something in a conversation that you learned on the show, feel free to let people know that you learned that, and maybe you send them a link to the show from your phone, and then they've got it right there for themselves. That is the single best way that you can help us grow our community. And if you've already done that or you're actively doing that, thank you for being an active listener. You can do other things as well, like joining our Substack newsletter and taking our listener survey. The link is in the show notes, or you can go to earthlingspodcast.com/survey, take our survey, and help us understand more of the topics that you'd like to hear. And thank you to Resource Labs for having us on the network. Today's Tech Spotlight is with the Boring Report. It's an app that strips away the sensationalism and can transform news into factual, neutral summaries. It leverages AI to analyze these news articles, and often it's pulling from various sources, which I really like. And it rewrites these stories in ways that provide a more neutral, fact based tone. In my experience, it removes so much of the emotionality and the unnecessary hype that I can feel brave enough to open the app in the morning when my brain is still waking up and I'm really super sensitive emotionally to things. And I can read like what's been happening in the world since I was sleeping, and I can leave that experience within like 15 minutes, and I don't feel emotionally charged in any way. And I can just go on with my day without feeling altered through what I learned. So that's my own little editorial about the app. We're going to get into it a lot more with our guests. They're the co-founders of the Boring Report, Vasishta, Kalinadhabhotla, and Akshith, Ramadugu. They both have extensive backgrounds in software engineering, working at Fortune 500 companies that you have definitely heard of before. And we're catching up with both of them from the New York metropolitan area. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Hi, Lisa. Thanks for having us on.
Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome. I'm thrilled to talk with you because what you have created has literally changed my life in terms of how I'm able to digest news. So thank you. So before we get into exactly how the Boring Report works, I would love to hear from you how you came to this idea, because as I understand it, you're software engineers first and foremost, and you don't necessarily have a background in journalism. So I'm curious to hear how this idea came about.
We both, I think, don't have any kind of history in journalism. We're both software engineers. And I think that's part of part of the reason why we came up with this idea is purely because we have that problem that you're describing. It was a personal problem to us. Like the idea that we had for this was probably, goes back to like 2018, 2019. And then through COVID, we all remember COVID and kind of the headlines that we were seeing during that time. And I think it was just a personal problem that we had where we were seeing the news, we were getting affected by kind of the headlines, and just feeling like we didn't have a single source of just fact-based neutral news, where we felt like we were just being swayed emotionally. Um, and we just wanted to, build something that would solve our own problems. And then a lot of the stuff around AI, like GPTs, came along, and it seemed like the perfect technology. So we kind of jumped on it.
Okay. So did you have the idea for the app before GPT came out? And so were you building your own AI? And do you have your own AI that you use? I assume it's your own that you devise here.
So we do have a lot of our own technology, but we do like most of the AI work that we do does come from like some of the big providers like OpenAI and Google, et cetera. Before the kind of GPT wave that we see today, like the AI wave that we're hearing about, we did have the idea, but it was kind of like sitting on the shelf. We were like waiting. I think we were just trying to figure out how to do this. We had the idea. We were like, okay, we want to combine sources from, like about a specific news topic, from, different news outlets, but we weren't really sure how to do that. And then when GPT came along, it was like, okay, this is the perfect technology for this. This is exactly what what we needed, what we were looking for. And it just kind of became like a, perfect opportunity for us to put it together.
Akshith, did you have something to add? It looked like you were going to chime in.
What we kind of have been iterating and working with is kind of the prompts. So prompt engineering, as that's kind of the crucial part for this whole a lot of the AI processes and application services that are currently out there. And so for our experience, has mainly been get that initial prompt going, look how what the output is, refining it based on either our personal experiences with how the articles come out, and as well as other people's, and kind of over time slowly build that out. There are ideas about open sourcing this prompt, as it's better for more people to kind of give their suggestion on how we can make it more refined to get the exact news and stuff like we want. But yeah, that's kind of how we approach that, kind of getting our solution for this problem.
Okay, so we're already kind of getting into the nitty-gritty of the science, and I want to make sure everybody can follow along with us. So let's back it up and let's talk about what is the boring report? How do people interact with it?
Yeah, so I can give a little bit of context there. So, like you mentioned before, it is first and foremost an application. So we started off with the iOS app as the kind of the way to proliferate it, so everyone can get access to it. Our next immediate step was creating the website, because not everyone wants to download an app and all that jazz. And so we have the website, and but what they both do is use that shared context of accessing news information, interfacing with the AI middleman of kind of translating all of those different sources, all that different content into the neutral summaries, and then it's the whole point is that it's accessible. So you get a perfect example. Like when you wake up in the morning, you just want to catch up on all the news. That's kind of the main purpose of how we saw it as well. Just kind of catching up on all the important stuff without having to be overwhelmed about what's actually going on.
And you have different sections. So there's international, there's various countries that you can sign up for, science, technology. How did you come about this split for the different topics sections?
I think a lot of it was inspiration as like kind of the main topics that you would see in other news platforms of like, these are the things that people are very much interested in. And there is a very much a strong bias on kind of the American news and American news sources. But as one of our feedbacks and one of our goals is to kind of bring in more international aspects. Obviously, some news will transcend just from America and affect the entire world. At the same time, there's certain stories that are globally just popular. So it's kind of the approach of just kind of prioritizing what people are interested in, and that's how we kind of subdivided it into according to the sections.
So, how does it work on the back end? You talked about prompt engineering, so I'm really curious to learn how does the AI know what articles to review and put into a neutral framework?
The bulk of the technology that we've developed has been around that what you just described, like what stories to include. Um, the most important concept of what we focus on to what include is like what is trending around the world. We find like basically our application, everything about it, the resources that we use scale with the amount of news that we do. So we want to really focus on the news that most people will care about around the world. So that tends to be trending news. And what we define as trending news is where when a lot of different publications are covering the same topic, we consider that event to be trending. Um, so basically, what we do is we kind of crawl around, like we've built technology to kind of crawl different news publications and kind of, figure out what they're talking about. And we combine the ones that have the similar topic. And the more that publications are talking about a topic, we know that it's trending. And then we, combine those into one summary and put it on the app. And the more they're trending, the higher up on the app that you'll see it, at least in our trending section.
So is that an automatic system? You have your web scrapers, you're tracking trending news. The system recognizes that this piece of news is trending, and then it automatically puts it into the funnel to be neutralized, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, it's all automated. I think the term we often use is borified,
Horrified. Okay, I like that.
but it's all automated. Like there's like a pipeline running. We go to sleep, it still works. So it's all automated, and then it populates the website.
It's also evolved since as we've developed the application. So initially, so as the app and website exists now, the articles you're seeing is like collated, combined of different events and stories. Initially, it was you would have a summary for each individual story, and as opposed to like the one shared document. During that initial work, we were able to kind of find out, oh, how are these stories related, and that once we automated that process, determining the relationship, then we're able to kind of do that combination and get to that overall neutral summary.
And how did you train the AI to be able to recognize sensationalism or biased reporting?
we use prompt engineering to kind of guide the AI. So essentially what happens is we find a bunch of articles that are covering the same topic, and then we essentially provide that to the AI as well as some guidance to say, hey, these are the articles that people are interested in, and please can you generate a summary? And we use a lot of prompt engineering techniques to kind of get that to become neutral. And what we also rely on is our reader feedback. So there's like feedback buttons at the bottom of our application at each article. So the ones that users have deemed that haven't done well, we will go back, see what went wrong, and kind of adjust our prompt that way. We've kind of played around with like training our own AI in the past, but to be honest, these models are getting so good and they're getting better every year that prompt engineering kind of satisfies our problem statement for now. But we won't rule out ever training our own AI sometime in the future.
I noticed that there was a shift at one point from one single article being borified to the culmination of several news articles. Is the system automatically selecting those several news articles to combine into one, or have you told it to weight certain outlets more than others?
It's pretty much independent of, there's no weighting towards the specific news outlets or anything. One thing we wanted to do is get news outlets from across the entire spectrum. Again, we want the information. So if our process works well, all the biases and everything will be gone anyway. So we just want that core information from as many sources as possible. And the way we tag them and we make sure they're identifying which ones are related and then process it. So there's no weighting. It's just we just care about the information regardless of where it's coming from.
One thing we do guide the AI to do is if a particular fact is being mentioned across different publications, like for an article across the spectrum, it's probably more likely to be true. So if a particular statement is being made across all the articles, it's probably true, and that should get bubbled up, versus something that's only said on one of them and not the others. And obviously we give all the sources so that the user can kind of still continue to make up their own mind. The summary is not a substitute for all the information and making up their mind. But the more information kind of pervades across all the articles, we think that is more likely to be true, at least.
Yeah, it reminds me of, from my journalism background, I don't know how prevalent this is today, but when I was a reporter, my editor would make me go out and get 3 citations for every fact that I had in my piece. And I had to have a private, like, bibliography of here's where I got all this information. And I wasn't allowed to submit and finalize my piece until I could back up everything. And I used to get really frustrated with that sometimes because I was like, look, we all know this thing is true, but why waste my time? But it worked out because there was at least one time when somebody did not like the story that I put out, and I had to spend the entire next day writing an essay around why I wrote it the way I did. Here are all my facts. Here's what the person said. Here's the time code on the tape and everything. And I'm like, okay, now I know why my editor makes me do that for every single article.
That's the main importance, is kind of, we don't want to detract away from those original sources. Whether those people have obviously worked on writing those sources, kind of capturing the stories, capturing the facts. Our goal is mainly to going back to the whole subscription model based, ad based kind of culture we have right now. We want to detract from that. We want to get them right to the meat of the information, and like Vasishta said, we just want that direct information.
So speaking of, you mentioned sort of ad-based business models. What's your business model for the Boring Report?
So we have never charged a penny. We never charged a dime. We don't intend to make money on this. We are not for profit. We do have a donation link on our thing, but I think only asked really once on our application, but we haven't really asked since then. We've managed to keep our costs super low. just because we've kind of built most of the technology ourselves that we use, and then anything that we haven't built ourselves, we kind of keep it low cost. So we don't make money. We have been managing to keep it alive. So I think we'll probably continue just like that.
It's very noble of you, and it reminds me of a conversation that I had with the Pointer Institute, which is that link will be in the show notes, listeners. Where he was talking about how you're probably in the future going to start to see a shift to more like nonprofits and philanthropy organizations supporting news, because then that really does distance the editorial team from attempting to sell ads or clicks or keeping eyeballs on the screen, so to speak, which sort of tends to lead to that lowest common denominator type of reporting. So I have a lot of appreciation for you in that, because I know it's not easy to build technology like what you've built on a low budget and using your blood, sweat, and tears to make it happen, probably on weekends and evenings. How has the donation aspect worked? You said you've only posted it, like asked for donations like one time.
Yeah, I think we asked once, and that kind of held us over for a couple months. Like you said, we have day jobs, so we also kind of fund this on the side by ourselves whenever we don't need to. But um, people also find our donation links and are very generous. Like we don't actively ask, but people do send us some money, and it's always very appreciated because it does help us continue to run this.
That's really cool. It kind of reminds me of like on Reddit, you can give people like a gold star thing, and it makes me like sometimes when I read some of these articles, I'm all proud of the AI. I'm like, oh, good job, AI. I want to give you a little donation. Good job. And then there's other times where I'm like, wait, there's got to be more to this. Like this doesn't feel like the whole story. And so then I'll click around on some of the sources and I'll get a little bit more color for to satisfy sort of like whatever I was thinking.
Stories are evolving throughout the day. So sometimes if you just rely on that essentially static piece of journalism, and that being the first time you see it all day, you might not get that full picture, whether it be not a well-written article or just in case the whole story hasn't panned out yet. I think we've kind of addressed that in terms of our sources we have. A lot of times they do get updated themselves, so that's great on their part. But at the same time, since we have such a wide array of sources across the day, different times, we kind of try to combat that issue as well. And the story, or even if you were to look at snapshots of the article throughout the day, it changes, it evolves, and that's kind of the process that we've automated and built into the system.
Where do you see the app evolving to? Do you have a vision for how you would build it out more?
Yeah. So one of the first immediate things we could do is make it so it's more accessible to more people. So one big thing about that is we recently rolled out the Android version of the application. It's been very much iOS heavy. A lot of the big features are all on the iOS side. Even the website itself, it has the core features in terms of browsing the information and everything, but even that could be beefed up. But at the same time, a lot of people have asked, where's the Android version of the application and everything? So we recently got it or getting it rolled out or has been rolled out. And so that's one main avenue of kind of getting it spread. Another thing is going back to the website. Not everyone wants to download the application. Everyone wants to kind of just go straight to the website. So both improving the SEO for, how those things surface, as well as improving the overall user experience. Those are kind of some of the two ways. And I guess the other major one is, making it more accessible to different readers from across the world. So whether that be localization within languages or having more, area specific news and kind of that personalization for their feed and everything, but that requires a bit more context and effort.
Yeah, I think the SEO piece is also huge because, like, currently today, I mean, we have people that say, I love Boring Report and stuff. That like those are our core users. They know Boring Report, they have the app downloaded and they love it and they, read it. But ideally, the situation is they're interested in the event that happened. They're interested in the news that happened, and then they can find it from Google, etc.
I wonder too, like, you guys should get on Reddit and do like an AMA about it. And like that's kind of stuff is also going to help.
we've spent very little on the application, both try to keep the costs low and everything. And so we haven't spent any actual money on advertisement or anything. So it's always been, so we've made Reddit posts, we've made social media posts about, okay, here's this application. On Reddit, it did really well. So that's kind of where, this is also at the crossroads of, um, large amounts of misinformation, large amounts of sensationalism, just what people were not feeling great about how the news is received. So, and it's very apparent. So we had great feedback on that end. So Reddit was a huge one for us and kind of drove their initial flow, and even kind of what we should work on ourselves, recommendations, suggestions. And yeah, so I think that's kind of been a way. And then it's really great to hear from people how appreciative they are, because again, dealing with these are their words, is that news for them is very stressful at times, and they feel overwhelmed. And like you mentioned the study where people are just being super distanced from the news itself. This is kind of a bridge for them to get back into the news, digest it in understandable amounts. So yeah.
Like, we know that society is strongest when you have an informed citizenry. And many people have so much stress in their lives, and there's so many problems that they're dealing with. They don't have the capacity to take on these existential problems that are happening in the news that they can't fix anyway, right? But it just adds additional layers of stress onto somebody who's already feeling stressed. So I completely understand why people would disengage from the news writ large, except maybe like weather and sports, which I like that you guys have sports on there too.
Yes. You have to know what's happened in the big game the last nights.
Yeah, exactly. How do you so what's your vision of how the boring report is going to help support return to news? Like, when you look into the future as you continue to build out this application, what's your vision?
I think calling it the bridge is the most apt way of putting it. I think Akshith said, I don't think we at any point have any goal of replacing people's main news source. People are interested in particular journalists. Sometimes they're interested in particular news sources, and they should continue to do that, and they should continue to be interested in that. But for people that kind of have become detached from the news, this becomes a bridge to kind of get back into that. We've often really just heard from people, I could not read the news anymore, and now I can. And we really just want to be the small, meaty pieces of information that kind of gets people back into the habit of reading the news and staying informed. And then they can kind of spread outwards from there to go back into the news sources. We don't want to become a replacement. It's really just the bridge.
The challenge has always been, if you think about even the technology aspect of it, is once we promote people to have these better practices with coming back to the news, kind of get understanding a bit more, being more confident in what they're reading, making the informed decision to go look at the sources as well. So that's a big part of it. Is we mentioned multiple times in our application and during our onboarding for the app, is to go check the original source, because we shouldn't be replacing that. And at the same time, if we drive enough of that good user experience and the whole user engagement, they will return and continue this kind of positive cycle of approaching the news in a very neutral manner, and then again, like Vasishta said, branching out from there. And we never force people to be do this, come back to the app, and here's a treat or something. It's not nothing like that. It's a lot of it is little slight encouragement here. Come here, you get your information, go on with your day. You don't spend your whole day on the app either. So
Right. Well, because you don't have the business model where you have to demonstrate eyeballs and dwell time and all this stuff. Yeah, thank you for that. I hate those mysterious red notifications that show up on your app and you're like, "What's this?" And then you go there and it's nothing. Like, "Oh, let's give you an offer. Oh, you haven't been here in a while." And I'm like, "You jerks." So I have a question for you, purely from a user's point of view. Sometimes I come across a piece of very sensational news and I'm like, well, I wonder how the boring report would neutralize this. How would it borify it? Is there a way for me to do that, or is that on your roadmap?
There actually is. Interestingly enough, that was the first thing that we did. It was like the initial product where we have an extension on the basically you share an article to Boring Report and it will generate you a summary. Actually, the initial app was people just doing that, and then the feed would populate with what other people were borifying.
Yeah, I remember that. Mhm. There was a lot of football, for American soccer sports summaries in the early days.
Yeah, exactly. You can still do that, although we've kind of shifted focus from that, so probably the functionality isn't what it could be. But it's good to see that it's good to hear that you might have that issue often, and that maybe that's something we'll put more focus on now. You know, it is there, but we should definitely put more emphasis on that.
I mean, frankly, that would be a way to bring people back to the app if they hadn't been there for a while.
Yep. Yep.
Here I am giving marketing advice on a podcast.
We'll take it.
Um, looking into the future, right? The Boring Report is, let's say it's, 5 years from now. What can we expect? What do you dream will be the future for the Boring Report?
Yeah, I think the main part is kind of harkening back to what we were talking about, the whole kind of transforming the experience of how people are approaching news. If they, if we get to know that in 5 years or however long it is in the future, that people have kind of overcome their this is what their news that they're getting, or it's just how easy it is from they're on the daily to get the news for important events. Just us knowing that we were the ones to help them to kind of get there. That is, I think, one of our biggest goals, both for our personal lives, as we both have faced this issue, and as well as the entire, as the ecosystem changes. And then AI and kind of the whole journaling aspect of it is going to be intertwined at this point. I think I do feel at this point it's inevitable, whether for the better or for the worse. We're going to see it happening a lot, and what we want to be known as kind of the people, making sure that people are connected to original sources as much as they can, as well as getting the direct information. So,
How do you think the Boring Report could influence journalism in the future? I mean, maybe there's a scenario where you're so good at providing these neutral summaries that you're getting more eyeballs than the sensational folks, and that sort of might nudge them to rethink their approach.
Yeah, I definitely think that's possible. I think not just Boring Report. I think generally like what AI is doing to the information landscape as a whole, like even what Google and companies like Perplexity are doing to like search engine. I think like finding information will change dramatically due to AI. I definitely see a situation where like a lot of like maybe journalistic uh, outlets are kind of act more as like information brokers where they kind of sell information to a lot of these AI companies or technology companies that then transform it um, in a way that makes sense for their readers. I also see a situation where people want sensationalist art, sensationalist uh, information sources. That some people want the boring stuff, some people may want something that fits their particular taste, and maybe there'll be different apps for different things, and they'll all get their information from kind of a central source. Uh, but hopefully, people prefer the boring stuff more, or the neutral. Anyway,
Yeah, get boring, right?
yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate all the work that you've put into the Boring Report. I love hearing that it is a labor of love and that you're doing it for the betterment of society reasons. I think that's a great place for you to come from with something like this. Like, we need a fourth estate that is journalism generally, and we may have lost that a little bit. I think we'll get it back. Sometimes you have to kind of like go into the darkness to find the light again, and I think your app is one of those beacons of light that we can look for.
oh, I appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah, appreciate us having us on, kind of talking about the app and kind of our whole journey here. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. And thank you, Earthlings, for joining us today. We'll see you again on another turn of this beautiful blue-green space flower that we call home. Primary financial and production support for Earthlings 2.0 comes from Technica Communications, an award-winning PR firm amplifying breakthrough technologies of the future. Additional supporters include Greenlane, who is working to build a nationwide network of commercial EV charging infrastructure, Tigo Energy, a solar energy and software solutions provider focusing on commercial, industrial, and residential solar installations, Ampion, who is expanding renewable energy access for communities and Fortune 500 companies everywhere through community solar. 24/7 Solar, a next-generation concentrated solar power solution that's modular and can capture the sun's energy at a higher temperature than conventional CSP and store it in simple ceramic pellets. And the U.S. Biochar Initiative, who is increasing production and use of biochar in North America by developing markets, increasing awareness, and building community. And of course, our heartfelt gratitude goes out to you, our listeners, for your curiosity and dedication and showing up with us every week. Thank you so much. We do this for you. If you have a topic you'd like us to cover, or if you want to participate in our Pay It Forward guest model, please contact me at lisaann@earthlingspodcast.com. And you can search our entire archive on any podcast app as well as YouTube. And you can also go to earthlingspodcast.com and search our website there. Until next time, keep exploring and caring for this beautiful blue-green space flower that we call home.